You gonna move the slides for everybody?
As soon as I'm done with the devotional, I haven't called her. Yeah, I want to know.
I thought maybe she emailed you back.
No, I didn't hear anything. Did you hear anything?
Nope.
No? Okay. Yeah. She had work today, so.
Yeah, someone for that. Evening, everyone. If you haven't yet, make sure you grab one of the handouts up front here, and then also sign in on the sheets. I know John Pelletin said he's not going to be here in a second.
Yeah, I know he said he's.
And it looks like Dave Hinkey's not here.
Is his gateway's chart?
Yes.
It is,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
saw Sue just sent me that, but he must have it. So.
Yeah, no, we tucked it in afterwards. It was one thing I have to think. Yeah. That's Kathleen, right? Interesting. All right, it is 6:30, so we want to call the meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. We appreciate it. Hopefully you have a handout, everybody. And if you haven't yet, before you leave tonight, be sure to sign in on the sheets. With that, we'll ask Pastor to please open us with a prayer.
The devotion I chose for today just kind of focuses on something that I think we've noticed. It's inevitable when you're dealing with anything in life, but I think especially with what's happened in the last couple of years, we've seen just so much change, right? You think about just how our ministry is so different from how it was, even just quarterly meetings that we're live streaming it and people will join us from home. It's an amazing thing that we've just changed so much in the last couple of years. The way we do our worship services, the way we try to operate in this strange COVID environment. But it's not just that. I mean, we've got a staffing committee right now that's looking at our next office administrator. Sue's retiring this year. I think she said she started in '93, so I think that would have been my sophomore year of high school when she started. And so she's been here a long time, huh? And think of all that's happened in the time she served here. And many of you have been here longer than that. And yet what's I've always thought is just great about churches is right next to that constant change, as we do our best to reach out to a world that's changing by the minute, is the fact that we have this changeless message that's been the same from eternity, that never changes. And no matter how much we adapt, and no matter how much things look different, it's always the same Christ, the same promises, the same Word of God, the same waters of baptism, the same body and blood of Christ in the bread and wine of the Lord's Supper. And that eternal constancy married with that constant change is what's beautiful, I think, about a church. Because as we try to navigate the world and try to do our best to reach people where they're at and to carry out ministry that's always changing, we've got the same message, promises we can rely on that'll never let us down. And it was the same way when a writer to the Hebrews wrote what I'm going to read you. It says in Hebrews chapter 13, starting off at verse 5, God has said, "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So we say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? Remember your leaders who spoke the word of God to you. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever." Why don't we start with prayer? Lord, we thank you that you're a God of eternal promises, who is always faithful, always does what he says for his people. Please be with us in our meeting as we do our best to carry out the ministry you've placed before us, as we make decisions to reach a constantly changing world, using the resources you give us, which are all also changing. And yet we are grateful and we're thankful that we have the same changeless Christ, the same promises that we can share with the world and that we can rely on. Just as you've brought Christians in the past through their times, you bring us through ours, and we'll all be with you in heaven forever. Be with us in our meeting and fill us with a constant sense of purpose as well as peace to know that you're a God who never changes. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right, thank you, Pastor. There were a couple extra sheets tonight with the handout. Unfortunately, we didn't get everything in, or there was some sheets that needed to be corrected as well. And then there may even have been a couple of sheets tucked in there. So hopefully everybody's got all of them. If we get to that point and we don't, we'll kind of hand them out. We're going to follow the agenda that's on page 3. We are on item 3. Oh, actually, we'll move right to item 4, which is progress on branding. Update Pam Zastro. The communications team has been working on this, and they want to give the congregation a bit of an update, tell you what it's all about, and Pam's going to do that. So, Pam, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. So as Rick had just mentioned, we and the Communications Committee have been working together on how we can change, or not necessarily change, but really evolve the way that we present St. Matthew's, both internally and to people outside the congregation. So this has been a lot of self-reflection on who we are as a congregation. Some of you might have taken part in one of the Bible study classes lately where we did a lot of self-reflection on who we are, why are we here, what is the purpose of St. Matthew's, what are some of our good traits, and what are the characteristics we like to give as new members or new visitors come and visit us. So with this, we decided to do a little bit of an updated brand approach. So we decided to overview 3 different areas of our brand. So Pastor, if you could go to the next slide. All right, so we took a look at our mission. We developed something called core concepts, and then we took these and we looked at how the mission and the core concepts could be integrated from a visual or a integration within the actual physical space of St. Matthew's. Okay, so from a mission statement perspective, nothing has changed. Our mission is still the same, which is, as a family of believers under God's grace, we exist to encourage each other, grow spiritually through the gospel, foster Christian relationships, and reach out to the changing world with a changeless Christ. So that has always been our mission. Just curious, how many people here are familiar with this? Say most. That's excellent. Now, how many would think that the rest of the congregation is familiar with this? No, yeah, exactly. So this led to the question, why do we have a mission statement? What is it for? So what it does is it provides direction on why we exist as a congregation. It identifies who we are, so we are as a family of believers. And then it also identifies what we're trying to do. We exist to encourage each other spiritually through the gospel, foster relationships. You can see all that action happening right in that mission statement. So this is kind of very big and very broad. So we decided how can we break this down into something that's a bit more actionable for somebody like you or me? So that's how we developed the key core concepts, what we call internally as the 4 C's. So before I outline what those 4 C's are, those core concepts, what they do is they provide a direction on how we can fulfill that mission. So the mission statement tells us, why we're here, what we're doing, and then the core concepts gives us the how. How are we going to do this? How are we reaching out to people and promoting the gospel? So we have 4 actionable points. If we can go to the next slide. All right, so we broke it down into 4 C's. First one being Christian love. Through all of our efforts, Christ's love inspires us to love others. Community focus. Our focus extends beyond our 4 walls to our neighbors, members, and anyone who can benefit from St. Matthew's. Christian service. We use our gifts and resources to put our hope in action. And a culture of refuge. We exist to offer a refuge of hope for all through word and sacrament. So you might be asking, so what? What does this mean for me as a person here in the congregation? So as we are active and we work in different groups within St. Matthew's, and you're trying to decide, is what we're doing really going back to the core mission of our congregation? These 4 topics can help guide those decision-making processes. So, is the events we are creating, can we align that event with what we have outlined here? Is the outreach that we are doing, is that meeting part of these goals? So that is one way that it can be used. It also provides a real simple, easy way for people to understand what we at St. Matthew's is all about. It's memorable, it takes down the big, broad mission and puts it into something that's easier to remember and obtain. I'm going to pause there for a second. What questions do you guys have? I think that's just an oversight. Yes, you are deep diving. We appreciate that. Yes.
Maybe under the 4 C's there would be something about the gospel message. Maybe that's buried in the last one, or the word is there.
That would be the word. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Maybe just a note, this is kind of what we thought, when we had our proclaiming our mission and purpose Bible studies. This is kind of what came out of that. We identified these as unique, things that are unique maybe for St. Matthew and our ministry. These are things that really get to the core of some of the things we get a chance to do that maybe every other church doesn't get to do. Whereas our mission statement, that would be, that would be talking about, sharing the gospel, and some of the realities of what a Christian church does. Then this is kind of talking about specific ways we get to share the gospel at St. Matthew. So it kind of serves as a teaching tool, maybe a reminder for us of what we went through in the spring.
All right, any other questions? Yes.
Just, I guess a question or maybe comment. I love what you've done. Yeah. We're really becoming a church that is actually practicing ministry on the street, I'll call it.
Sure.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We have people come here who are in hard shape, have significant issues, and we're helping them hand in hand. And I know that's in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not plain, you know what I mean? It's almost like, short of calling ourselves St. Joe's Food Bank, for lack of better terms, how could we get a little more descriptive about getting our hands dirty with actually helping people in a physical way other than a spiritual way?
Yeah, so I would point you back to the 3rd point here on Christian service. And this is actually, I'm actually grinning because you brought this up, because this was a point of discussion between the communications committee as we were developing this. One thing we were really trying to focus on is how do we, walk the walk? And so that's how Christian service became one of those C's. And that's really about hope in action. So when we are reaching out to individuals, regardless of where they are in life, whether they are coming off the streets, whether they're spiritually void, regardless of where they are, our focus here is to be of service to them. So that service can be both spiritually or from a physical perspective. So it could be, yes, I'm going to invite you to come to church. I am going to work the food pantry. I am going to work some events. So we were looking for a point that could encompass all of that and not just hone in on maybe one marginalized group. We wanted to make it more broad so it would resonate to any part of the church or anything that we do, just to showcase, yes, action is part of what we believe in.
So that actually then kind of end up in the next, for lack of better terms, an action plan, as you get these kind of things are strategic.
Yeah, so how I see this working is you would go back to your respective committees and you'd be like, okay, here's the year 2022 in front of us. Here are some things that we are, well, I would take that back one step and say, 2022 is in front of us. We have some guidelines on how our committee should be helping St. Matthew's get its mission completed. Now, if the actions and decisions that are made at that committee level can fit into these 4 areas, you're promoting the mission. You are rowing with the rest of the team on the boat. Mm-hmm. So that's how I see that happening. So it's a good self-study for people back in those committee groups to say, okay, does this really meet what we are here to do for St. Matthew's? Does that answer your question? It does. Okay. Anything else from a question perspective? Okay. So the last slide I want to share with you is how this can be presented from a visual standpoint. So you guys are familiar with our current logo, which I'm trying to see if it's actually in here. Okay. So yes, familiar with the tree, the St. Matthew's tree and the logo we have there. Now, it's not uncommon for a brand, whether it be something that you purchase from a store, Oshkosh Corp, anything like that, when they are doing a self-reflection process like this to try to figure out a way to emulate that type of change or evolution through something visually. So what we've done is we've worked with the designer to do a bit of a mock-up here of what our new logo could look like with this new emphasis on mission and the 4 C's at St. Matthew's. So here are 3 different options. I want everybody to realize that regardless of which visual is picked, there will always be a full color, a black and white, and a grayscale option. So the first visual up there, that's the full color. The second one is the black and white, and the third is a grayscale. You'll see that each of these images are slightly different in terms of the application of people underneath the tree. And another thing I want to point out is based on feedback from the Bible study and from our communications committee, we realized that Refuge of Hope really resonated with us and with people in terms of what is St. Matthew's. So we've added that as a new tagline for our logo. I'd like to open it up for some discussion here on your thoughts about this. Yes, sir.
Question, why is the grayscale on a different picture than the other two?
So there's 3 different visual options. So if you actually take a look, all 3 are different pictures. Yep, so the first one you'll see that there's a woman sitting underneath a tree, and then there's a older gentleman reaching his hand down to help her up. The second one, it's more of 2 people who are roughly the same age in a helpful pose. And then the third one, it's 2 individuals sitting underneath the tree together.
Okay, and the first two look a lot like.
They do, yes.
Is it plan, Pam, not to have 3 different logos, but to...
We would pick one. We would pick one, yep. Mhm.
Well, that's what we're asking right now, is which one you kind of prefer.
I feel like Vanna. Door 1, door 2. Yes.
I just think it's kind of interesting that the first one, I didn't get that that was an older gentleman, but I like that picture. I looked at it more like I'm actually bending over and doing something to help the person who's sitting. Instead of just extending my arm like I'm handing a tractor.
Sure.
That's what the second one looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just, it's interesting because the age difference.
Yep.
Is
Yep. Mhm. Any other comments?
That's the first two with the helping hand speaks more to me than the third one.
Okay. Okay, I feel like we've narrowed it down, so, we're to the final round of Jeopardy, so to speak. So between the first one and the second one, any raise of hands of preferring number 1? Okay. Number 2? 1, 2, 3.
And the reason I say number 2 is only because it looks like you're going to lift somebody up or help them up. And I think that's part of what we visualize as our mission is picking somebody up or helping somebody up, where the first one to me just simply looks like we're reaching down to somebody. The second one looks like we're there but to help lift them up, and that was my only pick between the 2. But I like both of them. The third one to me is just kind of 2 people sitting under a tree. They might just be staring off into the sunset probably.
Sure. Any other comments about that? Yes.
What is your thinking about the third one? What was the idea behind that? It doesn't stick out for me either.
Yep. Friendship and equality. So there wasn't the looking down, looking up type visual. It's more we're on the same level.
But I don't see it helping, all of this has been talking how, we're out in the community, we're helping, and I don't see that number 3.
That's fair.
Like I said, it could be just 2 people sitting there looking for the sun.
Yep. That's totally fair. Yeah.
Yeah, when I first saw it, frankly, I wondered, are those birds? Because the other two are so much more colorly people.
Yes.
The third one. Then when I compared all 3, then I got it.
Yep.
It's hard to know.
Yeah, that's fair. Totally fair. That's why we brought it here. We wanted to get input.
Now that you see birds, I see birds.
I think it would be interesting if you could flip flop and put number 2, the colored picture, number 1, the black and white, just to see if we're being led by color. In marketing, that makes a big difference too.
It does. It does.
If you presented it the other way, you could have gotten a different vote.
Pastor Milky?
were the 2 semicircles or whatever on there, is that on purpose or is it just a design?
Just a design element.
Where did the purple color come from? Is that something we've used previously?
We have used purple in previous logos. So if you think back to the one with the bell tower, the logo with the bell tower in front of the church, that was actually a purple. And then if you also think about our sanctuary here, the back wall is purple. We have purple throughout some of the windows here in the stained glass. So the next evolution of this, I guess, is in addition to having a logo, we're actually going to have a standardized color palette as well. So we'll have official colors of St. Matthew's. So that first logo up there really identifies those colors that are working. So you can see there's shades of purple, shades of green, and that could be utilized throughout all of St. Matthew's. I mean, there could be an accent wall in each of the classrooms. It could be utilized in the color of carpet if there's a color change, or there's guidance there on what it means. Mm-hmm. Another component is when we go back to the 4 C's, we can utilize those colors as well to help identify each one of them. So each one of the C's could be represented by a different color in our color palette. And we could also break the logo apart into pieces where a leaf from the tree could be an identifier. We could use it in presentations, within stationery, stuff like that. So there's some versatility with the imagery as well. Pastor Kuski.
Comment on the disc behind that. I know there's no, I guess, maybe real definite representation of the Lord or his, his essence, but when I see that, I kind of see the sun and God's light radiating down on everything that's going on there. So that might be even another concept that could be incorporated into the logo.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Maybe like in the first one, it seems like the man is kind of stooped over and maybe a little older.
Yep.
And we're not all old.
Mm-hmm.
We're not all young, but we're not all old.
I just want to ask, does anybody get any negative connotation from any of the pictures? A negative feeling at all? That would be the one. Okay. We had some discussion about that in the committee as well.
Why did you decide to show that to depict it as an older guy? Because you look at him, he looks like an older guy. I mean, later in life, that he has trouble hopping around. I mean, why did you decide to use that?
Well, it was more of when working with the designer, so I did not design these, I worked with a designer to actually make these images. So in my instruction to her, I was telling her about the congregation and how we are an older congregation, and we're trying to bring in younger individuals to be more active in the congregation. And she took that, and that was one of the images she came back with.
So we're saying we're an older congregation, come join us anyhow.
Well, age is just a number, right?
When I saw the image, I guess I didn't compare age at all with that image, just a taller man reaching down to someone.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's a woman, I don't know that I got that.
Okay.
Who happens to be seated, so you'd have to bend over anyway,
Mm-hmm.
unless you were 5'5" or something.
Correct.
I think either of the two I like are very nice.
Okay.
Is there a way that you can have either people want to do that are scooping down versus towering over them? Because I think about times when you're towering over somebody, you're establishing
Dominance. Mm-hmm.
I take it from that those pictures is, whereas the one at the end, although it does look like they're looking off the sunset, but you're at the same level as somebody. Is there a way that you can have them scoop down versus towering over them?
I think anything is possible there. How those images are actually created is it's basically off of a silhouette of two people in photography. So if you had two people posed, you just take a blackout image of what that is. And that's how they're getting incorporated in. And when you say stoop, are you thinking like back of the home plate, or?
Talking to them eye level, but almost like it's like a child. They just, a lot of times when you bring kids, like you never want to stand, eye level with them.
Yep.
There's just a lot of talk that said the first one, it's an older person. I don't see that.
Okay.
Until you said the first one's an older person, I don't see that.
That's true.
Look at it originally, it's a person.
And what I actually like about it, if we're going to talk about age there, is I like how the older individual is the one offering assistance and not the other way around. I feel that's more empowering. But that's just my opinion. Pastor Olson. All right. All right, so it sounds like number 1 is the one we really like. I'm going to take that back to the designer with some of the comments that I heard here tonight and get that finalized. I don't want to spend too much time with her on going back and forth on the individuals underneath the tree. So I'd like to know from this group here, do we want her to work on somebody, on a couple that is eye to eye level instead of this over-under appearance? Or does it not matter?
The one that's least popular is the one where they're both equal. I think they're both equals. I don't think we need that.
Okay.
I think as long as we can still do it in a way that shows a person in service, I think then it comes across that way. I mean, both 1 and 2, I think, show a person in service to another person. The last one doesn't do that for me. It's just 2 lovers looking off into the sunset. But I think, whether the person comes more down to eye level, as long as they look like they're in service to the person who's sitting under the tree, I think it's helpful.
Okay. Yes.
I think the first one there, the posture of the standing fellow speaks more to that than the second one. He's bending over rather than the second one, which is erect.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like seeing maybe one of the knees bended or something that would make them get a little bit closer to the level of the person who's sitting down, but still showing service. And then the second thing I would add is I would love to see that second circle or whatever incorporated into the first one, because I really like the look of the 2.
Okay.
And I like what Pastor Kuski mentioned about God and the sons.
And I think you're not seeing it because it comes off white. So if you take a closer look at the one in the booklet. Okay, I will take that back. Any other questions or comments before I relinquish the mic? Yes, sir.
That white the white circle, it doesn't have a lot of contrast. Is that not going to be an issue in the real context where it's used?
Well, you have to think how logos are used. So full color logos are generally used when there's a contrasting background or there's minimal black background, right? And then a grayscale logo might be used more in a digital print message here. And then the full black and white logo is generally something that you would use if you're getting a t-shirt done, if you're getting an imprint done on something. So you always want to have a logo that can work in all 3 different environments. So it gives you that versatility. Okay. That's all I got, folks.
All right, then we'll jump back to our agenda here and move on to item number 5. Worship Elder Jim. Jim? Comments? Anything?
Yeah, everything I have right now is in the report. We've already had our docs seminary here.
How about an update on hymnals? Where are we with hymnals? Okay, they're all here in the back. What elements are we still have on order?
We are waiting, the most important thing that we're still waiting for is the service builder, which is the electronic version that we can use for bulletins and PowerPoints, and what it even has like helps for the pastors or others putting the service together. We are waiting on like occasional services, like special services where you have a special book for it.
Okay. And when is there a target date for like when we go live with this, or?
Well, it is supposed to be Advent 1, which is the last week of November this year. But as of yet, they still don't have a date when we can order the service builder.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, the good news, I think, is we're on top of all of that, so we've done what we can do. It's not like we haven't got it all in the works. Okay. Any questions?
Touch base with the organ people this afternoon. The last parts that they were waiting for should be in by now. If they are, it's about 4 weeks out to completion of the manufacture, another 2 to 4 weeks to get it here. So we're about 6 weeks out.
Okay. That's good news. Okay. Cheryl?
I don't know if anything's been said about that lightning strike in the neighborhood related to the organ. It took out, we have the pipes, took out all the electronics and all the pedals. So if it sounds different, the organists are all doing their best to make it work somehow, but it's just real hard when you don't have the foundation, the pedals and stuff, FYI.
Yep. Well, the good news is we got an awesome plan in place to replace it, so. And just to give everybody a little bit of an update, some other things were damaged with that lightning strike as well. I think there were some things back in the AV area and other places in the facility, and we are working with Church Mutual on an insurance claim that should help us recover some of that. At least that's our hope. So, to give you the scoop on that. All right, any other questions for Jim? Okay, that said, we'll move on to member care. Dave is not here tonight, so just to highlight a couple things under member care that he had on there, which is actually on page 9 is his report. We had a successful back to church corn roast. I was really surprised that the number of people were there. It was well attended. That was back on September 12th. So that went really great. Of course, a thank you here to Keith and Leanne Stoop for all they did with that. And again, that was a huge success. Looking forward to Advent dinners again. We're going to try to put that together in search of volunteers. I know of a couple people that are interested in kicking in there, so hopefully we can bring that back. We may have to do a little something different just to spread people out a little bit more and take that into consideration as we still have some COVID concerns.
Rick, is there going to be sign up for that as far as groups or people who will volunteer to do it, or is it just going to be word of mouth? Trying to recruit, how's it going to be put together?
Don't know yet, to be honest with you. I know that Kathy and Michelle they're anxious. They'll do it if nobody else does it, but if other people want to get involved or we can have organizations do it again, I think that's great. Because then it kind of spreads it around, plus it gets other people involved in it. So that would be the ideal way. If we.
And see if it fills in.
Yep.
With different groups or individuals.
Yep, exactly, yep. That I believe is the way to do it. The other thing that Jim had, Dave had noted here is Sue Stillman, of course, is retiring come the end of the year. December 31st will be her last day. And there is some plans in work for honoring and thanking her for her dedication to St. Matthew's for all of those years. There will be a reception following the service on Saturday, December 18th. So kind of keep that date in the back of your mind. I know there's some more planning going around that right now with gifts and other things to put together. So please keep that date in mind. And then I think the last note he had here was save the date for a potential church picnic. We haven't had one for a few years, so it would be great if we could bring that back. We always used to have them over at Plowman Park. We could have one here too. So I think he's got that in the back of his mind, and some people are working on bringing that back to life again. So hopeful on that. Any questions? Okay, then we will move on to discipleship, I guess, right? I got to look here too myself. You're going to take care of it for John? Okay, good. John's not here tonight. He's out sick. You got the scoop? Okay.
Yeah, John is thinking that it's nothing serious, but he thought he'd just lay low for his sake and possibly anybody else that he'd get too close to. So his regrets for not being here. He, of course, is our discipleship elder. The first thing there on page 10 is regarding life groups. We've got actually about 30 people involved with those. We took one of our evening ones and put it during the day, and so left 4 or 5 people stranded who would have rather come at night, but actually picked up a few other folks in the process. I think what that says to us is that we're ready to start maybe another group, and I think we also have some facilitators for that. So keep that in mind for the new year. If you'd be interested in one of those Bible studies, that also includes a good deal of friendship, of growing closer together as Christian friends. There should be an opportunity for more to be involved in those. Connections Committee. He mentions there that there's maybe 25 to 30 members that, we were seeing more of before COVID, and we just haven't had them back. A good number of them, because of health issues, they're just not ready to be back yet, and it's a good thing that they are laying low. There's other people who maybe could be back, but, I guess maybe have gotten into a rut or just have gone on to other things, maybe other things that are distracting them. So our Connections Committee of about a half a dozen folks are just trying to stay in touch, not necessarily to make any judgments, to be understanding of where people are at, and just let them know what's going on here at church, and asking them to pray for what's going on, to be open to private communion, and to take note of some of the special events, and possibly think about coming back for those. I think Rick is going to say a little bit more about Gateways to Growth.
I can, otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave that to you. I'm going to go on to the next page and kind of finish up my part of the report. We, of course, had our serving fair the last couple weekends. Many thanks to the people who participated in that, both in putting together the displays and getting out all the information about all the things that have been going on, as well as you who had walked through just to give some encouragement and even to sign up for some of the things that are coming up. Didn't have a lot of people sign up for it, but I think there were a number of people that will be involved, more than they have been. I think what was really encouraging is, as you walked down the hallway, there were 15 displays with a good number of descriptions of what's going on here at St. Matthew. And I think just for the people who are doing things and are the leaders or the parts of those committees, sometimes you don't realize all the other people that are working hand in hand with you in the ministry here. So I think seeing all that was a great encouragement to all. And what we're going to ask some of the folks to do who put those displays together is maybe not to throw them out, but maybe to keep them around, or maybe to be able to refurbish them, because as special events come up, whatever it might be, if it's Advent meals or something that has to do with outreach or member care, I think there would still be the opportunity of putting something up in the back, just one display for that time, and letting people know what's going on in regard to a special event, and then also asking them to be involved. If there aren't any questions, I will step away and maybe let Rick give an update on Gateways to Growth.
Yeah. Normally, John takes care of this too, but in there should have been I guess a quick insert. I have 2 sheets here, but you have one, I think, with the graphs on it and everything, and then on the back is a bit of a spreadsheet as well. I guess just to look at the graphs first and to highlight there, as you can see, of the different areas that we had, the 5 different areas that we have, all of them have met the goal except so far the organ. The organ is like an itty bitty bit away from where it needs to be. So this 2-year program is kind of coming to an end, and it was extremely successful. We've accomplished a lot of things. The handicap ramp is complete. The final painting of that side of the building, we've got a little bit of interior work to do yet, but that can be done as time permits. But from a contractor standpoint, everything is complete. The technology fund, Jay, everything is done with that, right? We're all finished with that one. The worship equipment, although the lightning strike kind of set us back a little bit, but we have got all of that in, and that's all now working. And then the roof fund is actually kind of in a holding state right now. We ran out of weather this year, or we ran out of summer this year, and we're moving into winter, but we do have some plans for that beginning next year. So that leaves the organ fund. And the organ fund, I think if you go to that second sheet or flip your sheet over and just take a look at the organ fund, and you come all the way down to the bottom of that column, right now there's about $7,389.25 that remain of the $77,000 that we needed for the organ. So it's been very successful. Members came forward. There's $43,000 in member giving alone, and that's without any matching dollars. So that was a fantastic amount of giving. And from the whole for Growth program, I mean, our members really stepped up for that and did a wonderful job. We've accomplished a lot here in 2 years. So we should be really happy with that. And again, just a little ways to go on the organ, and I think I've heard some rumbling that there may even be some donations out there to cover that. So, questions, Cheryl?
On the back, with the numbers, first line says redirected, second line says LY found match. What is that?
LY found match. Last year. Okay. LY, last year. Last year foundation, those are matching dollars, 922. Okay? See, somebody knows what's going on here. Pam.
In regards to the roof fund, it being pushed back to next spring, next summer for completion, did we lock in a price, or is there will inflation or anything be a factor?
It will, and I think the other thing that's a factor is a little bit of a change in scope when it comes to the roof as different materials have become available. We have a little bit of leaking right now around some of our drains, but we don't have major roofing problems. So the roof really needed to be resealed, which was the target under now, and are looking at some different materials that would have a longer life expectancy. So the gateways with growth will probably operate in conjunction with other building funds to accomplish the roof effort. Pat, you can comment a little bit more on that if you that's kind of where we're at with that. We could have done something this year with the roof drains. To be honest with you, it's a nuisance, but it's not as serious as it wanted to be. I think we're better off expanding it and putting our roofing issues more to rest with a different product. Okay, other questions?
It's a little hard to follow here. He is yelling some things in, but the foundation, the total foundation pledge is available. Total foundation was $50,000 for the total of gateways to go. Just to make that clear.
Yeah, and Al, tell me if I'm right or wrong, but those were all matched dollars too, were they not? Across the entire Gateways for Growth.
40,000 of those were matched.
40,000 were matched.
10,000 was that gift to the organ.
That's right. Yep.
The total of 50,000 came from
Right. Okay. Any other questions for Gateways for Growth? Jim?
This is more of a comment. I believe the number I saw was like $165,000 that we've raised for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I want to just thank everybody that contributed.
Yep. No, it worked very well. All right, we will move on then. Back to a quick peek at our agenda here. Jay, outreach.
Just to highlight a few things on the outreach report. Peacemakers, if you can read there, they're making lap robes and walker bags for nursing homes and many baby Afghans for the Indian Mission Church, but more importantly, they're sending quilts and stuff to the Afghan refugees at Fort McCoy. I think that's so cool. The other thing I want to highlight is Trunk or Treat coming up this Saturday. Currently, we have about 20 to 21 trunks that are going to be available. That's from our members of our congregation. Again, thank you very much. That's awesome. Outreach team can't do anything without your support. I'm going to change this up a little bit. Off script, just bear with me. I'm done at the end of the year. I've done my 2 elder terms, if you will. I want to give a shout out to the outreach people that are part of our outreach group. And these are just the main core. There's a lot of others of you who always help us with our outreach events. But our main core is Nikki Sanderfoot, Lynn Kuski, Ben Ring, Janet Meyer, Judy Lowenhagen, and of course Pastor Olson and Pastor Kuski. They have all done an incredibly awesome job the last 5 years in outreach. Piggybacking onto that, it's not just those 5 or 6 team members that do outreach for a church. It's all of us. And we appreciate the support that you've given us the last 5 years, like Trunk or Treat, like VBS this past summer. You've all, a lot of volunteers to actually make these events successful. We couldn't have done it without you. People that really know me know I'm kind of passionate, maybe sometimes over the top about certain things. And I just want to put in another plug. We have a lot of opportunities here at St. Matthew that a lot of churches don't. I'm talking about the Hope Center and the Pillars Resource Center. We could really use more St. Matthew members to support those 2 projects that are going on. Yeah, I wrote this out, so, because it was, Jill, I didn't have to cry or anything. So, Matthew 9:37, then Jesus said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few." I pray and hope that all of you will try and not make Matthew 9:37 be true. Let's send more workers out into the field. I also want to thank all of you, the whole church, for supporting me my last 5 years. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you. Any questions? I'm not going anywhere, by the way. I'm still going to be on the communication team. I'm still going to be on the outreach team. I won't be your elder anymore, but I'll be around. Maybe I should backtrack a little bit since it wasn't highlighted earlier. Part of the communication team, social media and the website, we did take a hit on the organ and the AV booth from a lightning strike. It affected the organ, affected some of our AV equipment, affected some of our cameras. We still don't have those. We are up live streaming, barely. That is why, if anybody noticed, there was not a live stream on October 3rd. That was right after the lightning strike and everything went to heck. There was no way that we could be up that Sunday, but we were up the following Sunday with help from the companies that helped us put the AV booth in and stuff like that. So we're getting all that fixed, and we'll keep on rocking and rolling. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Jay. Pat Harbath, property report.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of quick things. As Rick had mentioned, the handicap access ramp project had been complete. Big shout out and a big thank you to Rick Fransky, because he was the individual who really headed that up and kind of spearheaded it. So he took that on, and also Al and Rick for putting up the signs, and Al, who had one of his buddies come and paint all the handicap stripes on the pavement. So those guys all did a wonderful job, so appreciate that. The last quarterly meeting, we had discussed the building and the bell tower, and that's still been a big priority for us. We've had multiple contractors in here. I've got more contractors coming in. Had one here this past Friday. We'll have another one coming in next Friday. We got our first quote from, trying to think of the name, Catalyst. And it was what I expected. The total price was around $340,000, but that was a combined bell tower and the building. So we had them split that. So the building, that quote was about $150,000 for the repair of that. So don't get sticker shock on that. That was just the initial quote that we received. We're going to get a couple more in here. The third and fourth quotes are from RJM. We also had Van Eperen come in. There's a couple other contractors that we may look at as well. So the building is the priority because we want to get the front of the building repaired so that we can start the repair of the interior. I also have a quote coming in from Van Eperen to fix the interior up where the organ is on that end of the building. So I expect to get that quote in a week or so. We also had quotes in from Borscht and Elite for the roof over the classrooms. So as Rick had mentioned, we just plain ran out of weather. These types of coatings that they put on the roof require ambient temperatures. So once you start to get down into the 40s and below, these coatings aren't going to be laid on. So we'll have to hit that again in the spring once the weather gets back to normal, and then we'll get those quotes updated. Lastly, we had our snow removal contract renewed for the year. We went with a different service this year, so we're hoping that this one works well. Not that the other service was horrible, but we just felt that it was time for a change, so we decided to go with Bob and Dave's. They had a very competitive quote, so we'll see what they do for snow removal. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. Excellent question. Question is about the lightning strike and what we're going to do for that. Part of the survey that was done on that building and that bell tower also incorporated and included the lightning rod system that's up there. And that was highlighted as a system that needs to be repaired. So that will be part of the quote when they repair both the building and then also the bell. Any other questions?
Just on the bell tower, you talked about two parts of it. So the big number is the tower itself,
Correct.
right? The second number you cited, 100 and some for the building?
Correct. The whole front of the church, up the roof, the peak, everything around it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of damage up there. I mean, this is a 100-year-old building. 100 winters, summer, springs, and falls. With a caulking gun. So, not that I'm opposed to that, but just don't tell my wife. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Pat. All right, next up then is financial review for the third quarter. Jim, you ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Ready as I'm gonna be. Okay, I don't have a whole lot to talk about, but I do want to point out that I do fit into one of the C's in the 4 C's. Christian service. We use our gifts and resources to put our hope in action. That's what the Treasury is all about. Pam, I was paying attention. Okay, all right. And I don't have a whole lot to talk about tonight. I do want to say to thank the Budget Committee. We have finished our work, and now I'm preparing a report for the council, and you'll be hearing about that at the budget meeting. We haven't scheduled yet. Okay, but our contributions this year are a little below budget, and it's somewhat concerning because it's what did I say, about 6,000 less than last year. It's below budget, and we budgeted a deficit this year. All right, so it's kind of getting to be to where we had a surplus of 29,000 last year, and we may end up not having that if we. It's hard for me to explain when I look at what gateways during that time, and so I know we are contributing, and we are putting our hope in action. Oh, this thing's okay. Can everybody still hear me now? I moved it too far away. Okay. Microphone's a little sensitive. Okay, so as I said, that's really all I have tonight. I didn't prepare any slides or anything, but anybody got questions? Everybody always asks me a question. I mean, I've always got.
Is there a comparison of how many people are attending church versus the offerings coming in?
I haven't done a ton of statistical modeling. There hasn't, there hasn't been a huge, connection, I can tell you, and I haven't studied it, but when the attendance was really down, of course, in 2020 during the pandemic, we didn't see a serious drop in offerings, and when it's coming back, it doesn't surge or anything. It's not a strong causation. I wouldn't say none. I don't know. Why don't you help me look at that sometime? I hadn't thought about it. You probably have some insight there. Okay. Question?
Feasible to send out a letter, not just an email, a letter. I don't know if everybody, 2 members saying we're short this much, give a special envelope, can you help us, something like that, and get the information to more than 30
Yeah.
people here. Again, I see the emails and stuff too, but I don't know, I'm real ignorant on a lot of stuff as far as computers. I mean, I can read my email, I know what's going on that way, but I don't know, some of the older people that are in,
Yeah.
some care facilities and stuff, they might have funds available for them. But
I'm.
I mean, is it feasible to get it to all the members and not just?
I think last year we did that, okay, and I think even the year before we used a field letter for end of the year before Christmas and before we come into the final. I think that's in the plans again for this year. The other thing that I think is yet to come out, because I think we haven't seen ours, is our givings so far for this year. I don't know if anybody else has gotten theirs, but I don't think we've received ours. And usually this is about the time Sue sends them out. So those two combinations, I think, that are an opportunity to let people know that we're coming into the home stretch and where we are, over the course of the year. So to your point, I think, yes. I'm going to tell you.
I think that's a good idea too, as far as giving them what their givings are for the year, and think, well, I can give another.
Yeah.
Even if you put a letter in there saying, everybody gives X amount of dollars, we close the budget or whatever, something like that. Like, just be added incentive, well, I can give, maybe not that much, but I can give a little extra to help.
Yeah. And we are kind of cautious about it. We don't want to sound the panic button very often on that either. So that's the other thing that we look at. Okay. All right. Question? Their website says that it works, but that doesn't mean that it, I don't know. I don't have a Thrivent account myself.
I had the same issue. I called my agent. Okay. And they actually took care of it. No, I didn't get a flat out. But I think call your agent, whoever that is. And I think they can get you push in the right direction. Yeah.
But thanks for thinking of us with your Thrivent choice. All right, anything else?
Thank you, Jim. All right, and now you're going to give us an update on the foundation report?
The foundation report's on page 18 of that. And if you look for activity, this is just activity for the third quarter. If you look under the contributions, there is a total on the bottom of $1,760 in contributions. That came as a funeral memorial contribution to the foundation. And as people give to the foundation, you can designate anyone or all of the funds that are there, or if you leave them what we call undesignated, to just made the gift of $1,760. Our bylaws require that we split the money in the proportion that the dollars are there for each of the funds. So as that's why you'll see more went to ministry, a little less to evangelism. We're actually splitting it by the ratio of the ending balance from the end of the quarter. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's why there's money in each of the accounts, because it came as an undesignated gift. If you look at the distributions, there was $15,218 came out of ministry, $5,850 out of evangelism, and as Jim referenced in his report, if you looked it through, the majority of those dollars were 2020 allocations that were designated to help 2021 budget. 2,218 was requested to support the hymnal purchase, and the rest of that then was allocation from 2020 to support this year's budget. So that left a 21,068 distributions. We've had some very good quarters. This one was down a little bit as those people, you look at your own investments, third quarter was down just a bit. We're down 11,229.41. So we ended up with 1,006,105.16. Still a good quarter. And we looked at, because each quarter is dependent on how it goes, we're with Wells Investments, and they put out a 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year average. Their 1 year average for the balance fund, which we're in, was 16.82%. 3 year average was 11.10. 5 year average was 10.46%. And 10 years was 9.89%. That's the balance fund we're in. So each quarter goes like this. We have a good quarter, we have a bad quarter, but as we look at those numbers, the committee is feel very good about being with Wells Investment, that those are numbers. And thanks to Jim Ulrich, he brought into us, he compared our investments with, I think it was a Vanguard fund that has the same objectives that we do from the foundation, and we compare very, very favorably over all of those time periods. So again, we're very comfortable with where we are with investments. So any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. All right, back to our quick agenda here. I think next is the pastor's reports. Pastor Olson? Okay.
So I just wanted to highlight a couple things. You see my report on our report on page 19. Just an update on the Lighthouse Youth. If you remember, that was something we were exploring, an after-school program. Wells run one. They've got a couple in Milwaukee. We were talking to them about possibly hosting that at St. Matthew. At the same talking to them about hosting one at St. Matthews. So we were the two proposals that came in. And after kind of evaluating the opportunities with St. Matthew and the core, they thought the core maybe fit with what they were trying to do a little more closely. So it won't be at St. Matthew, but they will still be doing their ministry in the Valley, which we're excited about. And that, I think, sounds like they'll be starting that in about 18 months, I think, is when that would begin. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. Thanks to the committee who studied that. I mean, we went down there and got a chance to tour it and put a lot of work in. So it was a lot of fun to be able to explore that ministry opportunity. And I think it opened our eyes to some of the opportunities we have with our facility and with our great location. So certainly we have many other things we can explore as we seek to do our best with what God's given us. Our COVID, just service times, what we're continuing with our service times for the new, right now. So we've got the 2 on Sunday and the 1 on Saturday. Our attendance is about 20% below what it was before COVID hit. So that's held steady since summer. So that's kind of been the case. And we talk about every month at council about that, and right now there just seems to be enough COVID out there that having the space seems advantageous for people that want to separate, they can separate. So the fact that certainly church isn't as full as we're used to before COVID, due to the fact that we're spacing people out in 3 services as opposed to having them in 2. So that's something we talk about every council meeting, and right now we think it makes sense to stay with what is, just with COVID being the way that it is. But didn't know if you have any thoughts on that. I know we talked about it last time, but if you had any thoughts on that approach. Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
How many people, do we know how many people are watching the service online?
I guess we haven't, I don't know that we've been doing counts of how many are, but we do. I mean, it seems like when I watch it, it seems like we're in 20-ish. Right, so you'll have people that'll comment on Facebook, like good morning and that kind of thing. But if you look at the amount of people viewing at the time live, the times I've checked in, it seemed to be that. I don't know, Jay, have you noticed about the same, like in the 20s?
The last couple of weeks, it's been a little lower, about 16, 17.
16, 17, yep. So that's been, so it seems like we've got a decent amount of folks that do that, and then after. We do have some members who are still staying away due to health concerns, and they do mention our live stream, and they do notice that when we had the lightning strike and it wasn't up, we had some folks ask what happened. So they are watching for us, which is good. So not the lightning strike, but they And just an update, Bible class opportunities, we offered some more. The Zoom off option, if, is something maybe to think about taking advantage of. We had about 5 or 6, this last go-around. It's just basically you just Zoom in at 7 o'clock on Thursday night, and we do a Bible study for an hour, and then Zoom back out. It's real easy. You can do it from your living room. If you'd like to check out the Bible study, but have a hard time coming on Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday morning, that could be an option for you. So maybe give that some thought. And I think our attendance Bible class overall has been up quite a bit. So that's been a positive thing. We're getting more folks in Bible class than we have before. So that's been a cool thing to note. So hope we've got a new one on Proverbs. You see the picture down there. Hope you can join us for that starting this Thursday. So, and then finally, the Mission and Ministry Committee. That's another part of what came out of our study in the spring. So the first thing we've been talking about was our approach to our logo and our 4 key concepts and how we can hold in front of ourselves the unique ministry that St. Matthew is. So, and a part of what we'd like to do with the Mission and Ministry Committee is to continue those discussions, to think about real life changes we can make in one way or another that can help us take advantage of some of the opportunities God's put before us. So we have, what we'll be doing is we'll be putting those meeting times out there so anybody can attend. But if you'd like to be a part of the committee itself, we do have some folks who've said, yes, I'll be on the committee itself and commit to being at every meeting just so we have some continuity. If you'd like to be a part of that, let me know too. We'd like to involve as many people as possible so we can explore some options with some of the opportunities that God's placed before us. And once again, it's an opportunity to build on what we talked about this spring and make some real life changes to how we do some things to better reach people with the gospel. So you'll be seeing those announcements pretty soon in the bulletin, and we'll try to meet for about 6 months. They figure about once a month-ish to talk about some things and study some things, and then come back with some 3 or 4 recommendations to council that might be worth some changes that might be worth making. So that's all I got. Any questions, comments on that? All right, thanks.
Part 2. Does everybody have the blue page? That was the page that has my report on it. Anybody need that? See plenty of copies there. Just to follow up with what Pastor Olson had said about Bible study, a few Monday nights ago I pulled into the parking lot out here on Mason Street and I couldn't find a parking spot. And I think it was mostly due to the ladies who've been attending. I think they've had 12, 13 maybe on each of the Bible studies. Yeah, up to 15 then? Okay. Yeah, so it's wonderful to see that as well as the many other Bible studies that have been attended, even Zoom. It's nice to have the 5 or 6 people who've been there. And you put that all together, and it's hard to tell because some of you are attending 3 Bible studies a week. So, but I think there's probably between 60 or 70 individuals right now who are involved in Bible study at St. Matthew in one way or another. And a lot has to do with Pastor Olson and also some of you who are facilitating the life groups, the ladies' study. Just have a lot of support there and a lot of opportunities for people to be in the Word. That's the congregations. Wonderful to see all of that. One of the notes at the top of my report, number 1, is that we had a number of new members join us, and those are mentioned on page 21 in the Membership Actions Report. We don't have any actions to take place in our voters part of the meeting tonight. All of those have been taken care of by the council actions. We do have one new member, Kathleen O'Neill, who's here tonight. So if you're not a Saturday night attender and haven't met her yet, you might have a chance to say hi. Let's see, going down to outreach. It's kind of cool at one of our, I think it was last week even, our donuts and discussions that we have downtown, or downstairs in the basement. Before our Lenten services last year, we started to invite some of our Pillars clients that can't get into the Resource Center until 10 o'clock to be downstairs and have donuts at 9:30. and then to stay around for some of the worship services. And there were a handful who did that. And there's been about maybe the same 5 or 6 who've been attending and coming, for the donuts down there. And last week, as one of the gentlemen got up, he turned around and hugged one of our lady volunteers who've been helping to serve the breakfast down there. And he said, this really feels like home to me. And I think that's what some of the people are starting to feel. They've been coming, they've been in the Word, they've been getting to know people, not just downstairs, but when they've been coming to worship, I think people have been very warm in welcoming them and saying hi and trying to include them in the fellowship in the back. So, fostering some of those Christian relationships, part of our mission statement, that's certainly something that we have an opportunity to do here. We had talked about it today in one of our life groups too, that some of the folks that might be family members or members who aren't attending right now, folks who are attending services or some of the Bible studies, have them in mind. And from time to time, we'll invite them. We have some great opportunities with the holidays coming up, some of the special services. I know Saints Triumphant is a great time for people to be back. So keep that in mind and just continue to sow the seed or to offer the ways that you do that. It's amazing. Some of the connections that we have, the relationships that we have are certainly blessed in the way that the Lord finally does that. If you flip your page over to the backside there, if you look down to underneath the Hope Center, again, over 100 families, over 300 individuals served every month. Just a lot of people that are in need right now and are coming to us. And really have a good rapport with our volunteers over there, as well as, I think, a great gratitude for St. Matthew and offering them the opportunities that they have here, not just for the charitable supplies, but sometimes to be able to talk to a pastor, to have some of the volunteers praying for them, and even some of the ways that is interested in having a baptism in a few weeks, so that the Lord continues to bless that. What we're hoping to do, though, is maybe through more support from St. Matthew, and this is one of the things I think that Jay was mentioning before, is if we were to offer something on a more regular basis here on our campus that might involve some of those families, a lot of young families with kids, whether it was something that was going moms or maybe some helpful instruction, life skills, whatever it might be, finances. If we were able to put something together like that on a monthly basis, we might be able to draw some of those people in for regular sit-down, face-to-face talks, and maybe to build some ministry opportunities with that. So maybe look for some of that and opportunities to be involved in that for the next year. Should I go on to the Resource Center?
Yeah, if you want to, please.
Yeah, so of course the Resource Center renewed their contract in the earlier part of this year, and they continue to have clients come in and to receive the services that they receive over there. One of the things that they've been able to do is with some of the coaching groups, is that they come next door now in room 108. They come right through those doors, and with the supervision of staff, we'll meet there. I think maybe as many as 10 people sometimes. So they're utilizing some of that space in addition to what they have in the Resource Center. It's really good for some of those folks to be able to talk about some of the confidential issues that they have, apart from everybody else who might be listening in the Resource Center. So that's been utilized. That is under point number 20. Point number 21 is that there are 2 offices that we really haven't been using other than for a little bit of storage. But the items that we have in there have been moved out. If anybody's looking for TVs with the VHS component in them, I know some hot items. But there are a couple of those over in the school hallway, if anybody knows where, a home might be found for those. But items like that really haven't been used anymore were cleared out so that the staff can use those as offices and allow for more space in the resource center for some of the things that are going on over there. And Betsy Borns has been very much in touch with us about some of the clients that are hanging around after hours. I think that's due in part to the larger population of homeless people, even people who are unsheltered these days over the summer, with the economy being what it is, with the lack of affordable and available housing. It's just not out there. So I think as we get into the winter months, there's going to be even more of a crisis for those people who do not have the shelter, and sometimes there's just not in the shelters. And I'm not saying that because we're going to open something up overnight. We just can't do that here. But it is mentioned on point number 18 that Pillars is very aware of that, and you may be aware of folks that might be around after hours. If you have any concerns about that, please give one of the pastors a call or possibly Rick. And typically we're able to come by or even get a hold of Betsy and probably address the needs of those people. There have been a few occasions where it's a lady that was dropped off over here right when the resource center was closing down. She had no place to go. Betsy was notified about, made sure that person was able to get some lodging overnight. Another lady hanging out on the steps of the church one night with a lot of gear. I don't know, how she came up with it all, but she wanted to move it along. So one of us helped her get to somebody where she knew she could stay for the night. So we have a pretty good rapport with those folks, and a lot of times we don't offer the rides or the overnight assistance, but in some rare cases Pillars is typically able to do that. And it's a lot better for them not to be hanging around here, not just for the visibility of the church or for the neighbors. We want to put our best foot forward, but to be able to take care of those folks. And usually if we interface with them, we can kind of help them along to where it's probably best for them to be at the time. And then on the other hand, if there are some people around here who might not be part of the homeless population, who might be the folks who are really to be concerned about, sometimes we can identify those folks, and then the police can step in where they might need to step in. So just being aware of our neighborhood and also the larger number of people that are around at this time. And I think we've got a good approach, especially supportive Pillars, and being able to help the people who really can be helped at this time. Anything more there?
Is there a contingency plan for like extreme cold or a blizzard where these people really shouldn't be out? Are we involved in that, or is there anything in place for that?
The executive director, the crisis management, or the crisis manager for the resource center and the shelters, Martha Baldwin, who used to be over at FEL. I think she is probably putting together some plans with the shelters right now to make all of their space available. So I think Pillars has that well in hand. You might recall a few years ago there was an emergency situation where we were asked if our facilities might be used, supervised by the staff. And I don't think that ever came to fruition, but we were...
But we did approve the possibility of
Yeah.
that would ever happen again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're kind of a backup plan to their plan, I guess.
Yeah. And we have the people here, as well as the people at Pillars, who would supervise all that. Whoever would come here has to be well supervised and helped along in whatever spaces they're using, and then, staying in the appropriate areas. Okay? Again, thanks for your prayers, your support, the contributions for the Resource Center and the Hope Center have just been phenomenal. Hope Center has a budget of about $25,000, and most of that every year goes out in the supplies that are offered there. That's cash donations as well as supplies that are, I think, just about every week or every other week. There's some baked goods that my mouth just waters over. And I get them over to the resource center as fast as I can, so I'm not tempted. But those folks are really well looked after. One of the homeless folks said, this is probably one of the few areas I've been in where I've gained weight while I've been homeless because of the charitable endeavors of folks like yourselves. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Pastor. We kind of jumped around a little bit, so if we just take a quick look at the agenda, we've kind of item 15 and 16, but we still need to jump up to 13 and 14. 13 and 14 pertain to foundation bylaw changes and also some other changes within the endowment. I don't know if when you guys picked up your agendas during the last couple Sundays, I think there were attachments on there. If you picked one up then, you had kind of a chance to preview them in advance and get a feel for what they are. If not, Ken, you're going to go over them, and then Pat, you're going to kind of be on that too.
I'm the council's representative on the foundation bylaws revision. Been working on this since June. It's been very productive. The bylaws themselves are about 15 years old, so it's about time we take a look at it. Typically, bylaws in these kind of organizations every 3 to 5 years, so we're kind of past due. The church council, in working with the foundation committee, is finding out that there's things in the committee that aren't quite clear, and they come up with a situation they hadn't seen before, and they go back to the bylaws, and the bylaws doesn't really explain it. So that's one of the reasons for forming this committee to revise the bylaws. Tonight, the pink sheets, they're up here. There's 4 different sections or articles that we want to present. And I'd just like to go through them real quick and see if you have any questions, be able to answer them.
They are in the book, but 210 on page 22, 23, and also.
Okay, they're also in the white. The first one is revision 2021-1, yeah, okay. And that is to remove references to the called worker fund. This was created sometime after originally adopted, and I'm thinking it doesn't quite fit with the intent of the rest of the bylaws, and it was removed by the church council in 2019, and what this revision does is revises the actual wording so that you don't go in there and you see this reference to a called worker fund when there really isn't a called worker fund. It's, it's bringing the wording up to actuality. Anybody have any questions regarding that? Okay. The second one, 2021-2, is deleting the reference to expenditures greater than or equal to $5,000. Originally, when this was set up, the foundation was essentially autonomous, fairly autonomous from the council, from the rest of the. And both the church council and the foundation were set up so that if there was an expenditure, a non-budgeted expenditure, pre-authorized expenditure of greater than $5,000, it had to be approved by the congregation. Two things. One, the congregation then is assured of knowing about expenditures of that size. And so it was put into both the foundation bylaws and the church's bylaws, the same, almost exact same wording. But since then, there was a change a year or so ago where requests for funds from the foundation went to the council first. It went to an elder, then the council. Council looked at at the expenditures, and if other money is available for this request, they'd be able to find it. So the wording was in both places, and the council now is doing this job, so there's really no reason for this to be in the foundation bylaws. It's because it's already being performed by the church council. And it just clears up a mess, because that was confusing, you know. Why do we have this when we have it over here? So that's the second revision to the foundation you're going to be asked to vote on tonight for the voters. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? Yeah.
Is there even a coherent way to work your way through the existing bylaws to say that a $5,000 expense would have to be approved by the council, then by the foundation, then by the voters again? Is that how it would go?
No.
There's no way to make sense of that.
No, because once it's presented to an alder, he takes it to the council, and the council either approves it or doesn't. If they do, it goes to the foundation, and they look at what they have available to support that with. And if they can provide the full requested amount or some percentage of the full amount. Any other questions? Okay. The third one is the distribution payout. The distribution payout percentage is one of the ways that makes a foundation a foundation. It limits the amount that can be distributed for use among the organizations or within St. Matthew. And a lot of them are in the range of 5% to 10%. And that's of the. And right now, you can see on the foundation report, we're at about a little over $1 million value in the foundation. And so if you have $1 million, percentage point is worth about $10,000. So if we're going from 5% to 8%, it's from $50,000 to $80,000, which would be an increase the church could use. Those are just examples, but this was requested by the foundation committee itself because there's been some years where we've done very well, and our stocks have done well, and they have a lot of money available, but because of that 5% limit, we can't use more. So this would move the maximum of 5% of the value to a maximum of 8%. That's just, all that's doing is putting, because the foundation committee itself looks at how the stocks have performed, what our earnings are, what the stock market is doing, and based on that, they do their calculation, they come up with an amount that would be made available to St. Matthew for their use in that year. And all it's doing is extending the maximum amount that they'd be able to disperse. It gets kind of convoluted to explain it as easily as possible, but okay, and then I will let Pat Jacklin, the chairman of the foundation committee, tell you about the facilities funds.
Thank you, Ken, and good evening, everyone. Before I dive into the great the summer going through the bylaws, we really, what turned out, what could have been almost adversarial became really creative, and we all brainstormed through different things the foundation could be doing, how they could be doing them different. Came up, and one of them was the need of the foundation to better communicate to you, the voters and the members, as well as to the church council, as to just what we are and what we're not, and how we work, and a little education, if you will, a little self-promotion. So, first step we did the last 2 weekends was the serving fair that was held here. The foundation did have a table back in room 108, and we had someone from the foundation available after all the times to be met. And we also created, for that purpose and for the future, a little simple trifold little brochure on the foundation. You know, a little bit about the history, what we do, how it works, that kind of thing, who's on the foundation committee board. And I have placed a fair number of these in the book rack outside of the hallway here, where all the other miscellaneous brochures and flyers are. Grab one. And if there's anything you think could be improved on the way we communicate, we'd love to hear that. Secondly, the foundation committee is actually that. We are if we continue to have some outstanding years in the market. But thank you in advance, hopefully, for the approval to do that. But this year it will be 5%. And then discussions. The other thing that we kind of realized the light bulb came on was the building and future facilities funds within the foundation, totally separate than the other funds, which are endowment, ministry, evangelism, public ministry, FVL, Synod. Those funds, when the foundation was established, had the endowment language and restrictions written in. In addition to that, money was put into the foundation for these two funds, building and future facilities. And there was a fair number of dollars in there, I believe, to begin with, and it seems as though Jack's original intention with seeding that money was to be used because there were no restrictions on how much could be used in a given year or any of that kind of thing. And we here, when we do the 5% contribution, we don't fund these two funds. So these funds kind of got depleted and have no mechanism to be refunded other than member gifts or memorials. So in a discussion with the council regarding maybe better ways to invest our dollars where we might make more interest in church funds, the discussion came up, why don't we take the building and future facility funds of the foundation completely and put that money in the hands of St. Matthew Church, with obviously the council and you, the voters, and perhaps those dollars could be pooled with other funds, memorials and stuff, and the council could look at better ways maybe to invest that and then do a little better. And from a foundation perspective, it clears up a lot of the work. We don't have these two separate kind of nephew funds. We just would have all endowment funds, all with the same bylaws, restrictions, abilities for all of those, and we just think that makes a lot of sense. That's the motion that's in front of you also tonight, which is on page 24, 2021-4, Building and Future Facilities Funds. So would there be any questions from the floor as to what we're trying to do here? Great. Well, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
right, thank you, Pat, thank you, Ken. I believe that takes us through the forum part of our agenda. Before we move on and close the forum, though, I always want to just kind of ask, is there anybody that has anything yet that we need to talk about that they want to bring up?
I just have a question that I told my Bible class ladies I would ask.
Okay.
Is that, are we allowed to park in the handicap parking when there's no church? Is that okay? Because we've got women that, we're getting out when it's dark, and some of them have to park over in the other back lot, which, if we're women, we would rather.
Yeah, I personally, and this is me speaking, and I think we can bring it up at council and talk about it a little bit more, but I think after hours, like when you meet on your Monday nights, that there's no problem using those parking stalls. I mean, you know you're not going to have a handicapped individual come to church at that hour of night. You know who's in your Bible study if they need parking in that particular area. So I would say go ahead. I mean, it's not like the police are going to scream in here and put a ticket on your car. So we'd fight on your behalf, So. Ken?
Regarding that handicap parking, unless somebody complains about it, like a disgruntled driver or somebody that's looking for a handicap spot complains about it, nobody's gonna bother you.
Yeah.
Because there has to be a complaint, the police have to respond, and they see, they come here, they see that, okay, they can issue a citation, and that's it.
Yeah, no, I think you're perfectly safe. Go ahead and use those spots. It is a blank spot, though. The thing that I was worried about with that parking lot is if all of those parking spots are full and somebody drives in, all of a sudden there's no place for them to turn around. And that's why we always had this blank here by this door 11 here a little bit, so people could kind of back into there and then drive out, because you really don't want to back out onto Mason Street. There's just some risk in doing that. So maybe leave one stall open so that people can get turned around if they come in when the lot's full. That's the only thing. Okay. Anybody have anything else? All right, we will close the forum, and then we will officially clear. Second on the agenda there is a vote to approve minutes from our July 27th, 2021 meeting. They are in your booklet here on page 27. I don't know if anybody had a chance to take a look at them. Hey, does anybody have any questions on that, those minutes? Any corrections to them? If there is there a second? All right, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Number 3, vote to accept financial reports as presented. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, any? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. On to item 4, ratify member actions. There actually aren't any member actions. We mentioned that early. It was kind of on the agenda here as a placeholder and to let you know there are no member actions. Moving on to item 5, vote to approve the foundation bylaw changes, and these are the ones that were just kind of brought out to us. And I think what we want to do, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, we want to take them one at a time if we can. Okay? So the first one that we'll be looking at is the removal of the called worker fund, which was found on page 22. It's revision 2021-1, removal of the called worker fund. I would welcome a motion. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, any further discussion on that particular item? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, that one is complete. On to the second one, which was the expenditure of non-budgeted funds greater than $5,000. That was revision 2021-2. I would welcome a motion. Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, anybody opposed? All right, that one is approved. On to the third one. The third one is the distribution of payout percentages. That was to raise it to a ceiling of 8% over the 5%. That is revision number 2021-3, distribution of payout percentage. I would welcome a motion. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Any further discussion?
It's to raise the ceiling, but also lowers the floor, right, from 1 to 0.
I believe the floor is still 0. Oh, yes, you're right. It does. The floor was 1% to 5%. The floor is now 0 to 8%. So you're correct in your comment there. Any other discussion? Okay, we've got a motion. We've got a second. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, that item is approved. And then finally, the fourth one is 2021-4, Building and Future Facilities Funds. Again, it's to strike that, I guess, from the foundation bylaws and eventually to move any remaining funds over to control of the church or the church council with other memorials and stuff, which is yet to be structured, but the first step of that is to get this taken care of so that we can, in fact, begin that process. So with,
Could I just add that?
Yep.
That will be about $10,000 to $11,000.
Okay.
Just so people understand that.
Understand the dollar amount, yep. Okay, I would welcome a motion. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, any other discussion? All right, all in favor? Anybody opposed? All right, that one is approved. All right, those were the items that we had there. And I believe our next agenda item is to a motion to close the voters' meeting. We have a motion. Do we have a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed? No. Okay. Again, before we close, a big thanks to Jay for his 6 years of service. I appreciate it, and we know he's not going anywhere either, so he'll still be available. All right. With that, Pastor, you're going to close with a prayer or blessing?
Thanks to all who came out tonight. It's a good group that I see in front of me tonight, as well as those who prepared the reports. Some of the folks who I guess are newer to the congregation have come and have looked at the booklet and have been impressed by that, just to see everything that's going on and the way that it's. And even if you're not here at the meeting, this gives the opportunity for other folks to pick these up. There's sometimes we make several extra copies of these to put out so that people can pick them up. Maybe one other note, too, is as long as we're noting terms of service, Joyce Schrader, who has been our coordinator for grief shares for, I think, about 10 years, sometimes doing a couple of sessions every year, so that's like 26 weeks out of the year for 3 hours a session. She is stepping away, maybe not for good, but just taking some time off. So if you have a chance to see her, thank her for the many years of service that she has been rendering. We're planning on continuing to offer the program. It's just that she's taking a step back now. Let's pray. Lord, as we continue to face many of the challenges in our world as well as for our faith, we look to you as a changeless, eternal, almighty Savior that you continue to be. Again, as we enter into a season where we talk about the signs of the times, that they're around us all the time, signaling that you could return at any time. Help us to continue to bring those who maybe are less prepared or not prepared at all close to you, even using the ministry here at St. Matthew. Continue to be watchful and present and powerful in delivering for our members who face physical illness, elderly concerns, spiritual dilemmas, whatever it is that they are up against. Be their rock and their refuge, and help us to go to them with that hope that is so prevalent and vivid here in the way that you make yourself available through this ministry, the wonderful gospel ministry in which you continue to shine out in word and sacrament, as well as in the way that you continue to shine out in our love. Make us willing agents and even ambassadors of this message, so that we can continue to bring people close to you and to reach out to a changing world with a changeless and Savior, Lord, that you are. We look forward to the continued blessings that you will continue to shower on us as your children. Amen. Have a good evening.